Wow. Okay. So Parse, he's Parse's out. Anyways, we're all
Huh?
moving here. What do you mean, huh? This is the Sportculation podcast, is what it is. I'm
Yeah,
Yusuf.
I'm
I,
Parse.
I'm Anton.
What's going on?
But hey, you know what? Today's a fun day. We've got a guest who's a very old friend of ours. Please welcome current employee for Maple Leafs Sports and Entertainment here in Toronto, a lifelong Leafs fan, formerly Jenn the Leafs fan on Twitter, now not Jenn the Leafs fan on Twitter because the Toronto Maple Leafs. Please welcome our dear friend, Miss Jennifer Chesson. Hi, Jen.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We wanted to just like ask you a bunch of questions of like what it's like working at MLSE since you've been
What's it like
there.
working at MLSE?
All right, I guess we're just jumping right into it.
We're just jumping right in.
We're just
Well, first of
jumping. Parse
all,
is
what is
invasion.
it that you do? Like, explain, a little bit of who you are and how you got to your position. Like, just the story of how you got to where you are.
Yeah, so it's so I've been there for like 6 years now. I started when I was like 19 years old. So I was like a cashier and a sales associate at the team shop, just selling jerseys to everybody and spending way too much of my money at the store. And then I interned in the communications department. And then I was a full-time receptionist at the office for a couple of years. And then as of January of this year, I'm now the executive assistant to our senior vice president of people and inclusion. So that's kind of like the trajectory in the last 6 years. What I do now is, so our department, there's been a lot of shifting. So I originally got this position for the equity, diversity, and inclusion department. And we recently just merged with HR to create this huge like people and inclusion department. So basically, we're just working on making the operations of the company and all the departments and teams and restaurants, whatever we have going on, just more inclusive, welcoming, diverse, and just kind of streamlining those business practices for the company.
Awesome. Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your history with the Leafs specifically, and like how you got to become a fan of the
Yeah, why are you a
Leafs.
Leafs man?
Yeah, why are you?
Yeah,
I mean,
why?
apart from the
Why?
fact
Just-
that
That's been the question I was asking
we're
my
all
whole
from
life.
like the Toronto area. Apart
Yeah,
from that,
but,
like
yeah.
what is your history with Leafs fandom, Leafs
Well,
Nation?
as Yusuf mentioned, I'm formerly Jenntheleaffan, but so I've been a Leaf fan my whole, like you guys know, I've been a diehard Leaf fan my whole life.
Oh yeah.
Whether that's for better or for worse.
Yeah, usually it's worse.
Yeah.
Hey, we're on an upswing now. I say that a lot, but we're on an upswing now. Yeah, I've just been a diehard fan. My whole family is diehard Leafs fans. So I grew up in that environment. So, just been used to this since I was like 5 or 6 years old, pretty much. So, and that's why like as I got older, I wanted to like work for them and just be more involved because it's just like the first love I had in my entire life.
Huh, awesome. Yeah, I guess we'll go to Parse's question of like, what's it like to work at MLSE?
It's a dream come true because you guys, I've wanted this my whole life, right? So it's fun. It's always something different every single day because like there's always things changing in the sports world, whether guys get traded or teams are on a losing streak, winning streak. Things happen like now that we're seeing a lot of social justice movements coming in and intertwining with the sports world. Like it's something completely new and different every single day. So you always got to be on your toes, but it's a really fun environment. I really love it. And the people are just awesome. I can't wait to be back in the arena. But
and are you guys clocking in 9 to 5 and then you guys go home, or is it more like you guys are on call 24/7? Like I know you guys have a strict, work date mandate, but are you guys, coming in at 7 p.m., 9 p.m. at night saying, you know what, we have a game here in Toronto, we got to be working? And what's it like, being on the go like that? Like which one is it? Is it 9 to 5 or is it like on the go?
So you know what? Most of the positions, because everyone deals with something different, right? But most of the positions are not 9 to 5. like when I was reception, I think that was one of the only positions in the company that I could constantly say, you come in at 9, you do your work, you leave at 5, and that's it. Oftentimes, like you're on your you do have set business hours, but depending what department you're in, sometimes you're working like coming in at 10 a.m. and leaving at midnight, depending if you're working on a game, or you're coming in super early because there's like a skills and drills practice on a Saturday morning. So you're coming in at like 4 a.m. and leaving at like 1. It all depends what you do pretty much. But right now, I have my set business hours, but then I'm always on my phone checking my email too, because things often come up. And sports always happen, at the time that not everybody's working. So like when different events or different things come up, I'm ready. I don't have to be working, but I like to stay updated so I know what to expect for the next day. So it kind of changes depending where you are.
Okay. One thing I've always wondered, especially like working for MLSE specifically, because with the Toronto fan base, it's always up or down depending on how the Raptors and the Leafs are doing. Especially with the Leafs, we've learned this. What's the atmosphere mainly like during, say, like a good winning streak among like MLSE employees?
It's so much fun. Like, so it's funny because when I started at the store, the Leafs were like the last place team in the league. That's like the year before we got Matthews.
Yeah,
So,
the tank year, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I've seen it. But so that was a different experience than thankfully what we're used to now. But when like I'll go back to like 2019 when the Raptors were on that super fun run, and just the vibes in the office, like, because what I like about this is that if you go to like in different environments that you are, I've always been that person, like I want to talk about the game with somebody from last night, but I don't know who watched the game. In an environment like this, everybody's watched the game. So you could just start a conversation with anybody and like, oh, did you see that goal? Did you see that, the buzzer beater? Did you see whatever? You always have someone to talk to about it. And when the teams are winning, like it's, obviously everyone's having fun and everyone's, just more jovial and cheerful. Losing streaks, you don't really feel as much in the office because, everyone's at the end of the day, like business professionals. So, we keep it professional, but obviously like we'll still talk about what's going on. It might just be less cheerful than a winning streak.
Okay. I have a very specific question in relation to that, and it kind of relates to the man behind me. Hi, Steve. So going quickly just off the like how the office feels after like a certain like win streak or a loss streak. How does MLSE, or how can I put this? How does the company and how do fans react like towards MLSE when things like, say, the David Ayers game happened?
Not the most fun.
Okay.
Because when I was at reception, I would have people coming in, like anybody could reach my desk because it's just on the main floor, right? So you're walking on Bay Street, you see the MLSE office, you could pop in and you could just, and I'd be the person that you'd see. So we get a lot of fans and tourists coming in, just looking around, seeing what's going on. But you could tell, like, whatever they wanted, whatever maybe feelings they'd have for the company, that would get directed to me. So they'd come in like talking.
Also,
like,
it's just like it's like a Starbucks thing, like where you're like you're just trying to do your job, but then it's the company policy that was like, hey, you just got to do this. I'm sorry, it's the company policy. They're just unleashing it on you, and you're like, I didn't do anything.
And you're like, I'm not the one that lost to a 42-year-old Zamboni driver. I don't know what to tell you.
That's the thing. So, and at the store, it was even worse because people would come in like after the game or like, right in that environment. And they'd be blaming like me. They'd be telling me, hey, you got to tell like Brendan Shanahan to do this and do this. Sir, I'm the minimum. I sell T-shirts for minimum wage.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
I can't.
When I see Brendan, I'll tell him.
Yeah, when I randomly run into Brendan Shanahan, I'll tell him, Shanny, hey Shanny, hey.
I'll call him up on speed dial. Tell him right.
Yeah, exactly.
Him and I are just like so tight,
Like... Shanny, it's Jenntheleaffan. I got a new Shanna plan for you.
Yeah.
Like.
So that's a funny thing because it's the same old like you see on team social accounts, right? Like you'll see fans and stuff directing any kind of like commentary or any kind of suggestions to this social media coordinator, thinking it's going up to the team. Like, oh yeah, Shanny's going to see it any day now.
Right. Yeah. It's like for every Leafs loss that people tweet at the Toronto Maple Leafs PR account on Twitter saying, "Hey, you should trade William Nylander." It's like, yeah, Kyle Dubas absolutely saw your tweet, user X5912345.
Yeah, what they don't know is he's actually running the account. Like listening to.
That's what his
modern
second phone is
Renaissance
for, right?
man,
You know when Dubas
is.
has like the two phones with him, that's what the second one's for. Is just he's running his Twitter account.
Exactly.
So one question I wanted to ask you is, like we're obviously Yusuf and I got like Leafs backgrounds, but Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment is not just Maple Leafs. Despite the title, it is also the Toronto Raptors, the Raptors 905, as well as Toronto FC and their TFC second league affiliate, and also the Argos. So that's like a lot of different teams. And so I want to know like what, specifically in your role as an executive assistant working with the HR and diversity and inclusion team, like what is that like dynamic like, looking at how you have to sort of manage all these brands, and because I mean I know that you're not HR, I mean you're not PR, you guys are HR, so you're not like, you don't have to like put out fires in case someone says something wrong, or but like what is that dynamic like?
Yeah, so it's all the teams you mentioned, plus we have restaurants, plus we have a store, plus we have live entertainment and concerts and different things going on at the venue. So it's a lot to keep track of. But our department, it's cool because we get to work with every single one of those players, and we just get to make, so there's some things that obviously we want to mandate for the whole company. So everyone has like a blanket, like a streamlined way of doing things. But then there's also, you got to take into account that people who watch the Argos are different from people who watch the Raptors and the Leafs, and people who go to the restaurants, people who go to concerts. You have to kind of figure out how to cater to those unique fan bases in other aspects too. So then sometimes we'll have a whole mandate for what everybody should be doing, like let's say hiring practices and training. And like we just rolled out a whole bunch of training modules for everybody to complete. But then other times we'll meet with the team specifically, we'll meet with the different, restaurants, we'll meet with different, like the live entertainment team, to kind of curate a plan and see where they could do better personally and where they could, improve, and kind of work with them to cater to their fan base and their personnel.
Right. And I want to like know a little bit more about your position in your department. Like, how old is this department?
So we are coming on, well, my boss, Terry, she was hired on in October, and that kind of started the department. We started off as like a mighty department of 2 people. And we were growing to like 4, but then we merged with our HR department, and now we're a group of 23 people. So the EDI like cohort of the company itself has been around since, let's say, beginning of November, maybe December.
So relatively new then, yeah, relatively fresh.
Yeah, super new.
Okay, yeah, and so like obviously the events of last year, and the rise in more vocal athletes in social justice movements has sort of brought this more to the forefront. And so what is that like because you guys are now tackling on this subject, and not just for, I guess you guys are part of HR, but also your position and your boss, specifically like your direct boss, is in charge of like, what does it mean to be perhaps a leader in the space of equity, diversity, and inclusion, and what does that mean? So like, I don't know, how much can you say about the plans and the values of the Leafs, and like what you guys plan to do moving forward?
Yeah, so we're working. It's something that we work on constantly, right? Because like with the thing with this practice and the thing with like all of the issues going on, it's not just like a quick fix that we can just do something and make a plan and execute it and be done. No, it's a constant process, right? So like and that's what we're still working on. So we're still working on what works best for each team, the company in general, and how we can keep moving forward. And every time that there's something new that happens in the news or the media, we got to recalibrate everything again because it's always changing. And unfortunately, there's a lot that's happening and going on that we have to change around. But that's how we get to a place where, down the road, we'll be ready for any kind of situation and foster an environment that is truly inclusive and welcoming and diverse in every single way. But it's a process that we're still working towards.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, I think that's an important thing to know, and it's great to have you on the podcast because you're working directly in that team, so we get to know a little bit more. But Parse, you have a question?
Parse, what's up?
Yeah, you know what? This is sports podcast, and I think we should have a little bit of fun. So let me just ask you, Jenntheleaffan, which team in the hockey league do you fear the most that could stop the Toronto Maple Leafs from getting a cup this year?
Wow, what a 180
Don't
that
tell
we
me
made right
We
there.
have been having this conversation for weeks.
Yeah,
now.
we're having this conversation.
Yeah,
Tell
we're
me
having this
All
conversation
right, yeah,
now.
let's do it.
Do you
know what?
the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to the finals? And if you do you think they're going to beat everybody? Who are you scared of? I just want to know.
You know what? This is a conversation I had the other day because with the new divisions this year, I have been in such a bubble in this North Division because for the first time, like the Leafs are first.
Yeah, they're
like,
first.
They're
doing amazing. It's incredible.
I am not used to this feeling.
Mhm.
So I have made a conscious decision to just stay in that bubble and appreciate the North Division for what it is. And then once we get, like, I don't know what's going on in the rest of the league.
I believe they call that
I'll check up on the
ostrich
standings.
syndrome.
Yeah.
You dig your head in the
I'm
sand.
gonna. Yeah, exactly.
No.
My head is deep in the sand in the North Division. I hope it lasts forever at this point because I am not used to this feeling. So, like I know, like Vegas is top of the leagues right
Vegas is disgusting right now. Yeah.
So, like I just off of that, I just say Vegas, but I'm not worrying about any other team until we get there. I'm gonna enjoy this as long as I can.
Smart move.
I don't have a lot to enjoy.
We've Parse and I have been having this conversation for a little while now where I have faith in the Toronto Maple Leafs after all these years to do well. I think they can get out of the division no problem for the playoffs. I think.
Hey, they're looking great right now.
They are looking great
in the North Division.
Winnipeg I think is the only like legitimate threat, but they're just like it could go either way.
Yeah.
You don't know. Yeah, Anton's happy because Winnipeg, but
it's fine. I'm cool if I'd be cool if like either Toronto or Winnipeg went into the play. Actually, I want
either
Toronto
of them
to go into the quarters because Winnipeg's already gone there in the past decade.
Winnipeg's made the third round in the last 4 years.
Yeah,
anyway,
they've gone up.
Yeah.
I mean, they were slapped by Vegas.
Yeah,
they were slapped pretty hard, but hopefully Toronto won't have that issue.
Yeah,
but, the Toronto Six was just slapped by the Boston Pride again. Like it's just always a Boston thing, slapping a Toronto hockey team.
Yeah.
So, even last year we saw with the Celtics.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yep. Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Right. So I
felt sad, but also great because I got to see the Celtics do good, but also the Raptors lose. It's conflicting.
Yeah, the way we view Boston is the way Boston views Central Florida.
Yep.
Specifically Tampa.
Yeah, like just we don't like you. Yeah. Stop taking our things away from us.
And actually, speaking of, sorry, I don't know if Yusuf, you had a question.
I do, but if you want to go on.
Yeah. So like speaking of Tampa, there was like a slight conversation about like, oh, should we just keep the team in Tampa?
Oh yeah, so the potential relocation of the
potential
Raptors.
Relocation. Yeah. I don't know how likely that would even be, just in terms of economics. Like Toronto as an economic hub would make more sense, just financially speaking. But like the idea of like bringing in new teams or relocating teams, like does that change anything in your company or even within your department at all?
Oh, like with them playing in Tampa right now.
Yeah, or like does that change like
Well,
like
the
logistics
conversations
or
of
anything? Yeah.
bringing in a new team, like bringing in like a Hamilton League,
Or a Markham team or
Markham
something.
team or something like that.
Well, remember there was talk like years ago about Markham getting a possible NHL team.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Mayor Frank Scarpetti is
yeah,
still
Frank
really,
Scarpetti is like still on
he's
that.
still really trying to get
But you know what? No, like I remember this so vividly because last year, February, before everything was going down, the Raptors were about to go on like a huge road trip. And everyone was like, oh, okay, the Raptors are going away for a couple of weeks. Like, we'll see them at the end of or the middle of March. And then right before they came back to their homestand, they didn't get to play their first game back home, I don't believe, because then the season ended. So I know, like, in terms of what's changing for us here, I know a lot of employees and my friends actually had to relocate to Tampa for a few months, not knowing when they'll come back, right? Because all of our operations are there now. So they've had to up and move everything. But everyone in the office and everyone I can confidently say is just dying for them to come back, because the feeling of a Raptors game day is like none other in the office. So we can't wait to have that feeling back, and we'll welcome them back with open arms as soon as they can.
That's a good thing. I feel like, I don't know, it'd be weird if it was like a permanent relocation to Tampa, considering the Orlando Magic is only about 45 minutes away. So yeah, things get kind of dicey there. And if anything, it would probably take away the market from the Magic, because it's the Orlando Magic and they don't have much going for them right now. So that's okay. So since we're still talking, sports and whatnot, since MLSE, not company side, but just more on a personal side, I did want to ask you because I don't think I ever asked you this when I saw you last year before the pandemic and everything. So certain trades will happen throughout the season, and I get people will be emotional over some of them. The DeMar DeRozan trade was a big one, but I feel like, if anything, I feel like, strangely enough, a little bigger than the DeRozan trade was the Kadri trade. And just your feelings and like thoughts towards that one, because I think that, if anything, really shook things up around Toronto.
It did, because when the DeRozan trade happened, I was at the store and I remember we were like getting rid of the DeRozan jerseys.
Oh,
and that hit me quite hard.
I bet, yeah.
But obviously I've been a Leafs fan much longer than I've been a Raptors fan. So, and I love Nazem Kadri, because we got to see him develop and grow into the player that he became. And we got to see him. Yeah, and we got to see him like work through things. We got to see like the flaws in him and how he like addressed them and how he grew and how he became like such a huge integral part of our team. So I still love Naz. Even just yesterday, I think my dad and I were talking, and we were talking about Bogosian, and I was like, and somehow just Kadri came up, and we're like, yeah, like I still love Naz. Like he's, it's that trades like that kind of sting when you're a fan, right? Because especially when you've watched a player for years, and you've seen that develop, and you see that growth, and you've seen how invested he was in the city and the community and the fans. And you have like mental images of that player too. Like I remember like his playoff celebrations, and I remember certain you can pinpoint moments of their career that you were just there for and you remember watching. So I still love Naz, but that trade, that one stung a bit.
Yeah, considering, I think looking back at it, and I've been working on a little video essay of it, looking back at the Tyson Berry trade. Colorado, congrats, you won that trade fair and square. And honestly, not like, it's the same thing, I think, when Phil Kessel got traded. There's no way he's not winning a cup now.
And Kessel was my favorite player.
Yes, he was.
Ever.
I remember in high school, you wouldn't shut up about Phil Kessel ever. Literally ever.
Yep. I still have his jersey like in the closet beside me. Like that was that trade hit me the hardest. I remember where it was too, because I was at like Niagara and like the shopping at the mall, and one of my best friends was at the Blue Jays game, and I saw on Twitter that he was on his way out. I called. I had a panic attack in the middle of that food court. And she still brings it up to this day because
beginning of 2016, right? Or like mid.
That was 15, 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Kessel was part of both
yeah.
Pittsburgh Penguins Stanley Cup runs.
Yeah.
And a very important part of both.
So I want to bring this back to you specifically. You had studied at Ryerson University. I don't think we discussed that. Like,
oh, that's right. Yeah,
you were like the first run of the
sports media program.
So like, what was that like, being the first run?
Yeah.
And also like, what was it like to study sports media specifically? And like, can you speak to anyone who is interested in that, going into that field?
Yeah, for sure. So you guys know, like at our high school, we didn't really have, if you weren't into like the sciences or like a specific
or math,
there's
nothing.
You're nothing.
You kind of had to just make your own magic work, right?
Do your own
I remember it was like you, me, and there was like 5 other people who were interested in media out of like a graduating class of 100. Yeah,
like you didn't want to be a doctor, so
yeah.
So yeah, like that program, we were the first year, and because RTA was always around for, I think decades they've been around for, but they split into like that year they split into 3 different branches: sport media, new media, and media production. So and there was a lot of talk between like the kids in our year, because were we the guinea pigs or the trailblazers? That was always one discussion that everyone had, because
why not both?
Yeah, so I think it was a happy medium between both, because in some aspects, like, it's cool, like you're the first, you're doing things for the first time, and you get to have this kind of like pride, like, oh wow, like we get to start off this program on the right foot. So on the other hand, things, some things might have not been as developed as a program that's been going on for a bunch of years. So it was cool to get to meet a lot of great people, and I think that's a big thing in media and sports in general. It's like who you know, right? And networking with people is just an invaluable skill that you can always use, and you use to work your way up. So that was, it teaches a lot of great lessons in that sense. For anybody who's looking to go into it, I'd say it's a good, like, you got to be cut out for it. And in that program, I realized that I wasn't cut out to be, like, I did not want to be on air. I did not want to do what a lot of my other peers wanted to do, that I thought I wanted to do. So I think it was great to teach you, like, maybe a path that you could go down, but also what you definitely do not want to go down. And that's kind of more the value it had for me, because I realized I'm more of a person that likes to do things behind the scenes and not be on air. Like, this is the first time I've ever been on a podcast. So I'm usually the person like behind the scenes doing that kind of work. But it's good to get your feet wet in the sports industry and get to meet new people. Like, I still like look back to the lessons and the guidance that a lot of my profs and my peers shared. So it's good in that sense, and it teaches you kind of how the industry works, which I like.
Just quickly going off that though, because I think the last time I saw you, which was last February, of course, before the pandemic, I think like we were talking about this for a little bit, but having finished the program at Ryerson and with like sports media, knowing like what you actually want to do, knowing like what you're afraid of and what you thought you want to do and maybe not, through that experience and like through the things you had worked on in that program, do you have like a different outlook on like the bigger spectrum of like sports media today? Like, do you have a different outlook on guys that are out there now, like, Tim and, well, not Sid, because Sid's gone.
Went to Breakfast Television.
Yeah, Sid went to Breakfast Television. Bye, Sid. Like Ken Reed, all the like Jay, well, not Jay and Dan anymore. God damn it, everyone's gone. But yeah, do you have like a different perspective on like just how the bigger like picture of sports media is today?
Yes. So the running joke in media and like sports media in general is that once you like go through a program or like you start learning about it and start looking at the technical side of it,
it changes.
You can't watch it the same ever again. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
You can never watch it the same, because you're like, depending where your interest is, you are always just looking at like the technical things. So I'm noticing like the lower third graphic and how that looks. I'm noticing like the camera angles. I'm noticing in like a documentary, I'm noticing where the people's like faces are turning to. Like you notice every single little thing.
It can be kind of hellish sometimes when I'm watching things like that.
Yeah. So when I was fresh into that program, it was so different because that's all I would notice, because it would just be what I would like learn 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, sitting down to watch the Leafs game, and I'm looking like, okay, but like, her mic is there, like, I can see the wire, like.
Really, I would have thought that because you were.
Hey, Ken Reed, where's your earpiece?
Yeah, the two of us, we were both in volunteering for Rogers TV as well.
Yeah.
I was surprised that like it wasn't even baked into you back then. Did not doing those mobile productions, having Gary McMahon telling you.
Gary McMahon. I was, he crossed my mind the other day because I found some kind of paperwork I had from Rogers TV like deep in a drawer somewhere. And I was like, oh my God. Like that was so long ago.
Yeah. This is for those who don't know, like Rogers TV is was a like community television, like local access thing, and like they took in like high school volunteers or whoever they could get just to get you like experience. And yeah, I remember like their viewfinders were like CRT and they were still black and white. I remember doing a rugby game and like I had to look up at the sky because the viewfinder was all the way up there. But yeah, like that was what you were doing before in media, but like you're now in this diversity and equity and inclusion role. So what are you doing now, like day to day? I know you say it changes, but like what are your like job roles and duties?
So yeah, like, and with the newness of the department and kind of our mandate, it is changing. But typically, I just work really closely with our SCP and the department, and I coordinate, like, basically, like, so right now, like, we're looking at new vendors or new like organizations to partner with, and like fishing those out, and then also like working on how we can make our employee experience better. So what does that mean for training? What does that mean for creating new, like, so we just created new employee inclusion groups, and trying to get those off the ground and running, and helping like support our employees who are going through a tougher time and who want to connect with more people. It's basically, yeah, I hate to say it does change all the time, but basically just working towards kind of making the experience as great as I can for the internal employees who are working with us and working with the departments to like get their EDI initiatives off the ground, and also seeing how we can be better for our community and our fans, and reaching out to new organizations and new partners to try to elevate our practices a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't know if Yusuf had a because I have another question, but I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just asking more like about what your because right now this is your new role. I know it's like all cool and it's like very exciting, and it's kind of hard to like know what things will be like in the future. But what do you like? What are you aiming at towards the future? Is this like something that you want to, like this specific role you want to do for a while, or like you want to take on a different role in the next like 5 years or something?
And and like the time I've been here, it's always changed. But one thing that I love about this department, I know I want to stay here because I love this work and how rewarding it is, and how it is like emotionally taxing on you because you are doing a lot of heavy work sometimes. But it's something that I'm really passionate about because I just, at the end of the day, I just want to help people, right? So, and growing up as like an Indian girl playing hockey and watching hockey and being a fan, I want to create a world in our sports teams, our community, and our company that is so much more inclusive of people like, little Indian girls growing up wanting to work in sports, and people who don't necessarily look the same from what they see on TV. I want to help, like, short answer, yes, I want to stay in this department and develop it as much as I can, because I think that everybody should be able to watch a hockey game or go to a Raptors game, or start playing soccer and seeing a person that looks or resembles something about them in a bigger picture, in a bigger way.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah,
That is awesome.
Now we know like a little bit more of like why you're, or at least a second motivation, another motivation is like that was you wanted to, you're doing the role that you wish you had growing up, being a kid playing hockey, which was very or actually still now a little bit
still rare,
kind of very white and middle class, upper middle class, but yeah, like what is the goals of that in order to increase more diverse participation in
and it's crazy when you see the disparities in how accessible each sport is for a family. So any kid could go pick up a soccer ball and start shooting it around, and it's accessible to learn, to play, to watch. But you can't say the same about hockey, because you got to spend thousands on equipment and registration and ice time and
skating lessons and all the little things.
Yeah, and you don't, and rinks and lessons and leagues are not as easily accessible as like finding your local soccer, even on your lawn or even at a park, just kicking a ball around, right? So that's been always something that I've like just been so interested in and like hopeful to change, because once we get the sport on like the grassroots level more accessible, then that creates so many opportunities for kids growing up to want to, hey, like, what, I can maybe work in that sport, or I could, maybe play on that national team. It just creates so much more opportunities growing up. So that's one thing that I've always just been really like hopeful to change.
I was gonna ask, going off what you brought up earlier with the likes of not white people getting more into sports like hockey, like us, for example. Becoming fans. Yeah, exactly. Look at the three of us.
Yeah. Minorities.
Yeah, I mean, like that's something we've brought up on the podcast numerous times in the past, is the fact that we are three guys that are not white, that really enjoy watching the sport and like talking about this like non-traditional sport like soccer is. But oh crap, am I good?
Oh no,
there we go.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
My internet's been weird today. I don't know why.
Right,
anyways,
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. But when you look at on, I wouldn't say maybe a global platform just yet, but at least on a national platform, you have the likes of Nav Bhatia that's representing the Toronto Raptors on like a huge scale. Do you feel like individuals like Nav and Harnarayan Singh on Hockey Night in Canada, do you feel like they will in the next maybe 5-10 years have like a bigger impact on the like minorities around Canada to get into sports like basketball and hockey? And do you think we'll like see a bigger growth in that in the next few years?
Oh, I think for sure, because like if you look maybe 20 years ago or 15 years ago, you didn't have personalities like that you could see on a national television broadcast on a Saturday night, right? Like you saw people who largely looked the same, talked the same, act the same. So if you didn't fit that mold and you're growing up, you don't really see a place for you in those broadcasts or in those locker rooms or in those offices. But having more prominent figures, like whether it's on courtside at a Raptors game or at the desk at Hockey Night in Canada, just the act of seeing someone who kind of like represents something in yourself, it creates this kind of like fire and ignition in yourself to just be like, what, I could work to that one day. Because like one of the popular things that I always go back to is, if you can see it, you can be it.
Right.
And that representation, no matter whether it's just one person at the desk, makes like such an immeasurable impact for so many kids and young people growing up.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think like, obviously different leagues are slightly different. Obviously basketball has large mostly black players, and whereas hockey is different, where it's like mostly white players. And you think about the idea of like, we're Canadians, and we have this idea of like, Canadians, we love hockey, like that's our thing. But if hockey is not accessible to everyone, what are we saying that as Canadians? What are we saying about our identity as Canadians, as hockey fans? So yeah, I don't know if you could speak to that a little bit more.
Well, yeah, and that's something that I've learned actually more as I've grown up, and I've expanded my friendships and my networks and my communities and people I talk to, because growing up, like, you think that, okay, hockey and Canada are synonymous, that is Canadian culture. But as you grow up and you start to learn more, you're like, you know what, it's actually very selective, because a lot of people who grow up in Canada don't feel that connection with hockey. And so as a result, their idea of Canadian culture, they don't really feel strongly tied to it, because this huge part of Canadian culture that so many people relate to, they just don't have that same connection to it. So I think to change that and make Canadian culture really inclusive of all of Canada, you have to change the practices. You got to change, who's watching and who feels connected to your sport. Otherwise, it's just a select group.
Yeah, awesome. So, did you have any other questions?
I do have one more question, but I'm gonna just quickly follow up on that. It's weird when you think about it. Like, yeah, hockey is a dominantly white sport, and you have players like the Subban brothers, right? An entirely black family of hockey players that grew up here in Toronto. That have PK has done well for himself. Malcolm's starting to do better. I don't know if Jordan's still in the minors, but they're doing great. You have like the Indian community, right? Like us, it's not really a big thing. Hockey's not a big thing, but I always, I joke with my parents about this sometimes. Is the Edmonton Oilers have Jujhar Khaira, who is an Indian man that plays hockey. Granted, he's a fourth liner, but he is still an NHL player.
He's playing.
He's an NHL player, and I always feel like just that alone, going off what Jen had said, like it takes just one person to really be enough to inspire a lot. And I think if more people start to understand and notice, besides the fact that Jujhar Khaira, he isn't Connor McDavid, we know that. No one's Connor McDavid. But the fact that just by itself, there's an Indian guy who, yes, was born in Canada, but still is Indian, still looks like an Indian, everything, is a professional hockey player. I feel like that might be a message sent to, the future of, young Indian Canadians or whoever, to potentially like more into the sport. All right, this is where we close off, and I do have one question for you, Jen. What was it like getting the championship ring?
Oh,
I wanted to know this for so long.
Yes, perfect final question.
Oh my god, It was like, I still can't believe it. Like, I keep it on my desk here, and it's the weirdest thing to this day, because sometimes I'll I'm getting ready, I'm like grabbing my hairbrush and looking at it, I'm like that actually happened.
Yeah,
it feels like a fever dream sometimes.
And you have a ring to prove it.
Yeah, so yeah. I'm very happy it happened before the pandemic.
Yep.
And not during the season, because I actually have great memories to go off of. But yeah, it's just it still doesn't really feel real in a lot of parts, but it's a really cool reminder and souvenir, and just something that I never thought would ever be possible. But there it is. It happened. It's possible.
Yep, exactly.
And hopefully the Leafs will get one.
Hopefully the Leafs will get
within our lifetime.
Oh,
yes, within our lifetime.
I'm saving a big spot for the Leafs one.
I bet you are. You'll get a replica Stanley Cup and everything, and just a picture of Jumbo.
The one rollerblading that I was.
Yeah, the rollerblading Jumbo photo. Yeah, I guess that was my last question, but I guess I have a follow up to that, since you did mention the Leafs. How hopeful are you feeling now for the Leafs moving forward, considering the crazy amount of moves they made?
You know what? I have faith. Which is something that it wasn't always possible growing up as a Leafs fan, but
especially the last couple of years.
Yeah,
your reaction.
Kind of need faith.
You do
in this team. There's not much you can.
No, you can't bank on, just because they're good. You can't bank on them playing well.
But you know what I will say? I can't remember a team in my years of being a Leafs fan that has been so fun to watch, like constantly just in it. Like, yeah, we have some, obviously every single team has some games where you're not, there, but like this team is you feel like they're constantly in the game. You feel like they're constantly in the hunt. They're fun to watch. They're fun to watch on the ice, off the ice. Like it's a feeling in the team that I haven't had for quite a long time. So I can't remember the last time I've ever had this much fun watching the team. So I'm hopeful.
It's definitely been a while. I think it's definitely been a while.
Yeah.
Going off, every Boston loss and whatnot. It's definitely been a while.
Yeah.
Jen, do you have any, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or any parting words that you would like to leave with our viewers? Maybe they are a young Jenn Chesson.
Yeah.
That you would like to...
We might have the next Jenntheleaffan. We can't because I know Jen already has that account locked up somewhere in a vault.
I have it saved.
I know you do. I know you do.
Okay, we might have a Jerry the Leaf fan.
Yeah.
Or Jess or Jasmine.
Other
names.
That's my mom's name, so that might be her burner account.
There you go. Yeah. Any advice for the next, something the Leaf fan or the next Steve?
Minority female.
Maybe not Steve, but yeah. Yeah.
You know what? Just always bet on yourself. I'm going to take a page from Fred VanVleet. Always bet on yourself. Always just believe you can do it and be your own cheerleader, because you know what? You don't like the championship ring. You don't know what's possible. So always just bet on yourself. And thank you guys for having me. It was so much fun getting to catch up and talk to you guys.
I know. Yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah, it's been quite some time. Thank you for coming by.
Yeah.
That's so much fun. Thanks.
Yeah, that's one thing we've been doing with the. That's one thing at least Anton has been mentioning on the for the podcast a little more, is bringing in people. And I figured like the first proper guest we should have is you.
Oh, I'm the first guest.
Well, no, you're not the first guest. You're the first expert guest.
Yeah, first expert guest.
the other guests that we've had were just like friends.
Yeah, friends of friends and whatnot, just coming in to like give insight on little things. But first, like as far as like legitimate guests we've had.
Yeah, someone who like works in the industry.
Yeah.
And
while we're just working our way towards getting other people, while I constantly call out Steve Dangle and try to get him on here.
Yeah, and then one day Gary Bettman.
And one day, I'm scared if we get Gary Bettman.
One day, no, actually,
all right,
one day, Vince McMahon.
I will scream.
I want to see that. Okay. Anyway,
but yeah, Jen, thank you. Jen, thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, and on that note, this has of course been the Sportculation podcast. I'm Yusuf.
I'm Anton.
Parse died like halfway through the episode.
Parse had
just disappeared.
I think he had to drive home from his appointment.
Parse is, and there's Parse, and we have Jen. As usual, be sure to check us out on Spotify, Breaker, Google Radio, and wherever else you can find your podcasts. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/Sportculation. And go Leafs. It's the only time I'll ever say it. Go Leafs. Thanks.
Go Leafs.